And we're back. You're listening to the Talkin' Boxing with Billy C show. Glad you could join us. And it's that time again. It's time for the, well,
blast from the past. We shine the spotlight again on fighters from years past.
Shadow, top-ranking heavyweight. Joe Louis is the leading contender.
That's not in this one. I must be the greatest.
Joe Frazier with a left hook. Good right hand thrown by Foreman that time.
Look at that left hook. Belt that goes to Ray Mancini.
It's Blast from the Past on Talkin' Boxing.
And this week's Blast from the Past, which is being sponsored by the KOFantasyBoxing.com. Check it out, www.KOFantasyBoxing.com. Features former World Welterweight title challenger and Boxing Hall of Famer Dave Shade. And I know you're probably saying, who? Right, Dave Shade. And joining us right now to tell us all about Dave Shade is Alex Perpally. What's up, man?
Hey, Billy C. Welcome back to the US of A.
And it's great to be back. Trust me, man. You know, people take for granted how good we have it here in the United States. So, and when you leave the country, you get to realize. So hopefully people realize it. I certainly do. But anyway, Dave Shade. Tell us about this guy.
Yeah, Dave Shade. We have come near him in past blasts. But this is the first time we've done him specifically. And, yeah, he is somebody who people might, if you pay close attention to who gets into the Hall of Fame, he just recently got in with a very, very popular Hall of Fame class. Dave Shade is actually, you know, it's funny. I see it listed as two things, Charles David Shade and David Charles Shade, so one or the other. But Dave Shade is what he fought under. He was born March 1st, 1902 in Vallejo, California. He's a West Coast kid. And I tell you, Bill C., this is one of those guys who boxing was a trade for him. He started boxing at 15 in four-rounders and very soon was a professional. And, boy, look at those first 3 years. First year as a pro, fought 20 times. Next year, 20 times. Third year, 24 times. I mean, it was all business back then. He fought out of a crouch. And, you know, it's funny because I thought, you know, in some places I see him listed as a clever boxer, but I also saw him referred to as a poor man's Harry Greb. Which would be more of a you know, aggressive guy. So I'm not sure about that.
You know, he got a lot of experience inside his house because he had his brothers Billy Shade and George Shade both boxed too. So
yeah,
you know,
and a fighting family.
You know, it's funny you said that he was a poor man's Greb because everything I see about him was that he fought in a low crouching style. Bob and weave before Bob and weave was in style, and that he was extremely hard to hit. You know that his style was more defensive. And when you look at this guy, he wasn't a knockout puncher. As a matter of fact, it was a rarity that he did knock anybody out. You know, so it's interesting to hear the different thoughts on him.
Yeah, I was surprised at that too because it was because it seemed like when he. Towards, you know, once he got to the point where the Mickey Walker fight was one that was won, it was very likely that they wanted to get made for him. It did, they referred to him in a couple of the articles as a poor man's Harry Greb. They were curious to see how Walker would do against Dave Shade because it would suggest how he might do against Greb. But yeah, you know, he was a welterweight first, and he did fight Jack Britton. That was one of his where he got a lot of notoriety, and that was a real interesting fight. Jack Britton, of course, is a Hall of Famer, and one of the I think he's got fights with 3 Hall of Famers: Jack Britton, Maxie Rosenblum, and of course Mickey Walker. And of those 3, the Mickey Walker one sounds like it was the best fight of them.
Yeah. He fought these guys multiple times. It's funny you mentioned Slapsy Maxie, because when you look at him, he did fight him a couple of times, came up short. And then, of course, Mickey Walker. Jack Britton is a guy that should be ranked all-time great, much higher than most people give him credit for. I mean, those were really, and then, of course, Jimmy Jones, those were really the biggest names. You know how we're always talking about, these guys from this era, and, oh, look at who he fought. Look at the names on his resume. Well, I don't know if you could really say this about this guy. I mean, despite having over 220 fights, yes, he fought Mickey Walker. Yes, he fought Jimmy Britton and Jack Britton and Jimmy Jones. And, of course, Slapsy Maxie did have some wins over other notable fighters like Al Gaynor and Ben Jeeby and Ace Hudkins and, some other fighters that were popular in the era. But a lot of the other names, most of those, the rest of the 220 names that he's fought, I didn't recognize many of them, And it's interesting because we're always saying how much these guys fought everybody, and I'm not saying he didn't. I'm not knocking him, but they don't stick out.
Yeah, there's some guys that are a little more obscure. Jimmy Slattery was one who was a pretty talented guy, and I was surprised to see Dave Shade is not mentioned in our the go-to book that I like to always consult, the Burt Sugar Boxing's Greatest Fighters book. Dave Shade isn't even mentioned in the index, which I was a little surprised that there's no mention of the Mickey Walker fight. But Jimmy Slattery is mentioned in fighters. Sugar has a page of fighters that just missed the cut of making it into his top list there. Top, what is he? I think it's 50 that he does, or 100 rather. So, Dave Shade doesn't make it, but Slattery does, and Shade has a big win over Slattery. And Slattery, Cyber Boxing Zone refers to him as a guy who was sort of a Mark Breland type guy who was really, really built up. They thought he was going to go places, and Shade put a stop to it.
Yeah, Slater is another one. I think they're very parallel, these two guys. And he also fought a guy earlier in his career, Wolgast. I wonder if any relation to add. But interesting thing about this guy, I saw multiple entries on him about. First of all, he was never a world champion, which is shocking for a guy that had as many rounds as him, almost 2,000. And over 220 fights, 224. He never won a world title, but according to my research, he got 3 shots at it at the welterweight title. The first one was in 1922 against Jack Britton, and it was a draw, so he didn't win the title. And then a year later, he fought Jimmy Jones and lost a decision. The most popular one that you hear about and that the Hall of Fame mentions and everything was a controversial loss to Mickey Walker in 1925, where everybody that was ringside felt that Dave Shade won that fight. Did you hear anything other, or did you find out anything deeper about these world title shots? Were there more, or were there less? What's the story?
Not that I saw, no. You got it. I think, but yes, that there was some controversy. The Britain one was especially controversial. That one was a draw, and some people did, and that was for the welterweight title. I'm trying to think, a modern corollary of somebody who was in a lot of title fights but always came up short, and some were better fights than others. And I think that's why he's in the Hall of Fame and deserves to be, I think. But you're right. He was busy against some obscure names, but we do see that kind of thing a lot in some of these guys from this age. And then he would have step-up fights. and because that Pete Lozzo was another guy who was a pretty talented fighter.
Yeah, he was. We heard his name a lot over the doing the blast. Pete Lozzo. You're right. And that was a good fighter too.
And and it's a trilogy with Mickey Walker, so that's pretty big. Because you're right, it's more than just the one fight.
Well, that one fight, he lost by knockout because he broke his arm. How do you break your arm? I mean, Mickey Walker was known for doing that. I couldn't read that Mickey Walker broke his arm. They just say that he broke his arm, and they went down in the record books as a knockout loss.
Yeah, a stoppage, right? Yeah, I know it. A dislocated hand. I also saw. Yeah, it's amazing to think of the pain that these guys must have endured.
I know, and there was no mention of how it happened. We've heard of broken hands, stopping fights, and everything else, but what I saw was broken arm. And Mickey Walker used to hook people's arms underneath, and Mike Tyson did it, and was accused of trying to break opponents' arms and stuff. It almost seems like Mickey Walker, and he wasn't exactly known as a guy that was squeaky clean in there all the time,
Right, yeah, he could be rough.
And you're the guy that reads all the newspaper stuff. Were you able to find anything on what broke his arm in 1921?
No, I did not. I did not see that. But, yeah, I do think that it is one of those things that, it's very... Because remember, even around this time, or not too a couple years earlier, even battling Jim Johnson and Jack Johnson when they fought. That was why that fight was stopped. He broke his arm. He broke Johnson's arm.
Something I wanted to bring up. You mentioned Jimmy Slattery. He was much bigger than Dave Shade, wasn't he? Because didn't Slattery end up fighting in the light heavyweight division?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why. There was that third Walker fight, was because he had just had the TKO win over Slattery in July 2nd of 1925, and Slattery, seemed so promising. At the time, he was 66-2, and he stops him. So that idea that he beat, let me see if they show a weight here on those guys. Yeah, that was quite a card. Shade, that's right. Slattery outweighed him by almost 9 pounds. Shade weighed only 153, and Slattery was 162.5. Yeah. And Shade chopped him down. That was quite a card. On the main event was Greb versus Mickey Walker. There was Harry Wills fought Charlie Weinert in a co-feature, and Joe Lynch fought Jackie Sharkey. And then Shade versus Slattery.
Wow.
But yeah, he was 9 pounds lighter.
Jack Sharkey. Harry Wills was the guy that people claim that Jack Dempsey avoided for his whole career, So
yeah, exactly.
And
that was one of the things that was interesting because Shade stuck around the fight game. That even after he was done fighting, he helped out Dempsey. He was a sparring partner for Dempsey, and I found this article about it was right before Dempsey's last fight, the rematch with Tunney, and they were doing like secret sparring sessions at night. Moonlight drills are Dempsey's latest, and they said that I guess they had spotted Dave Shade hanging around the Dempsey training camp, horseback riding and jogging and stuff, and they noticed he had a black eye. So they were like, "You guys sparred last night," and different people they asked in the camp, they all had different stories. One guy said, "Oh no, he went out drinking last night," and then another guy said, "Oh no, it was dark when he woke up in the middle of the night and he walked into the bathroom door." So they were being real secretive about it while he was in training for Tunney, because I guess they didn't want to give any secrets away.
That's funny. I never heard that. That's good stuff, man. Now, Dave,
I guess he was common that he fought bigger guys.
Dave Shade almost fought for 20 years, right? I mean, pretty close to it, right? I mean, he started.
Yeah,
in what?
It's. I think the span, it was 1908 or 1915 to 30. I just wrote it down.
35.
Yeah,
and,
35.
And he fought nonstop. He didn't have any breaks in between or anything. You know,
no mini retirements, nothing.
yeah, and then when he retired, he walked away. You know, I mean, that's more commonplace back then. You know, but now one thing, Alex, I was not able to find out anything about Dave Shade after his pro boxing career ended. Now, he lived to the ripe old age of 81 years old. And I know you pride yourself on finding out exactly how they checked out. You know, I mean, what did he do in retirement? Did he have money? Was it one of those sad stories where he died penniless? What's the story?
No, I think he did retire in pretty good shape financially, from what I saw. Well, hold on, I should hold off on that. Because, I always do, I'm a morbid guy, and I do want to see what kind of terrifying, horrific ends these guys came to.
I know.
That was the case.
I look forward to that part of this segment, So how did he go? Did he have his faculties? Did he have a painful death? Was he penniless?
Oh, he died peacefully.
Yeah. Oh, jeez, he died peacefully. Poor guy. Forget it. Let's move on. No,
this Dave Shade, real determined guy, fought very active. I'm going through all the articles. I get to, it was article 386. I see a headline towards the end of his career, 1933. Battles 9 policemen. Dave Shade, boxer, taken to hospital in straitjacket. I'm like, oh my God, let me add that article. So Dave Shade, 36-year-old middleweight boxer and veteran of more than 400 ring battles, tried to beat up 9 policemen of the High Bridge station in the Bronx yesterday with a chair. He lost and was taken to Bellevue Hospital in a straitjacket with his feet bound. He will be treated there for alcoholism.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure you perked up when you read that, huh?
Yeah, so there we go. So, now, however, things definitely got better, and I think he did. There was an article here. You could find it on the internet. I could post it in the social media. I'm not sure. I think it's Massachusetts.
Pittsfield.
The Berkshire, or upstate New York, maybe the Berkshire Eagle sports section. I didn't. Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Yeah. When he was inducted, they talked to his son. Excuse me. They talked to his son, and after his boxing career, he operated East Street Cafe, which became a Boulevard Cafe, and then he moved out. He sold his interest in that and moved to Florida, and ran a motel down there, and died at 80 in his 80s. Which he has got a couple kids. He did not like boxing and was very vocal in speaking out about boxing. He said he would absolutely not encourage his children to become prize fighters. He thought that it was a very dangerous and harmful sport. But his son said that he looked at boxing as his job, as a profession.
Yeah, they all did in that era. That's what's so different today. Even though some of these guys make so much money, how many times do you hear that they do something during the day and they fight 3 times a year? These guys, they were a professional boxer. They fought for 20 years. They stayed in it, like you mentioned. He's sparring at night with Jack Dempsey. He's in the business as a pro for over 20 years. I mean, that's a career. 20 years is a career.
Yeah. He said that less than 5 fighters out of every 1,000 ever advanced to a position of recognition. So he realized that that idea that you toil in obscurity, and I guess he didn't want that for any of his children.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're right. It sounded like he did okay. With a couple of businesses and. Moved to Florida. He's from California. I had thought that he was in California his whole life. He was born there, and I thought that that's where he passed away. But I'm glad you enlightened me. So he must have died in Florida.
Yeah, it looks like it was in Florida. And evidently Bob Shade, the son, because this was the year, this was written, 2010, the year that he was inducted. So Bob Shade must have gone to Canastota to accept for his grandfather.
Oh, I thought he got inducted in 2011. Oh, they announced him in 2010, and he got, the actual induction was 2011, right?
I don't know. Oh, yeah, maybe this is an art. Yeah, because this art. Right. Yes, because it was the 2011. Because this is the because they always announce it in November, and this is a December article. So you're right.
Did they?
And it was the year that Tyson and Zoo and what was the other guy that got in that year? Calzaghe?
Oh, we were there. Yeah, Calzaghe.
Right.
We were there. No, I don't even remember them mentioning Dave Shade.
I remembered it being listed, but they never mention the old timers. They only just do a real quick, because nobody's up there, and the only way you would know is if you see the family has the badge on there. But they really, that's one of the things I think is unfortunate, because I remember when we had done Mickey Walker, I had remembered the name. So I remember when that class came in, I said, oh, hey, look at that, Dave Shade is getting in. So I remembered that he was getting in, but you're right. If you just went to the Hall of Fame grounds, there was almost no mention whatsoever of it, other than looking in the program.
See, I remember the name, but I didn't remember he was inducted. That's strange. I remembered the name, like when I picked it. The name. I was familiar with Dave Shade because it's such a plain Jane name, but I forgot that he was a Hall of Famer. So I don't even recall. And now that you remind me, it was the same year as Tyson. We were there. We should have heard it. But who did you put him up against in the title bout championship game?
Yeah, I had a little fun with this because I thought my research was a little thin this week, so I put him in the title bout championship boxing game against 4 different guys. Of course, our friend Floyd Mayweather Jr., Manny Pacquiao, Miguel Cotto, and Gennady Golovkin, because he fought in both those divisions, welterweight and middle. And because, in a sense, there's really no consensus on who rules any of those things. Well, I think the most consensus is Floyd rules welterweight. So we'll go with him first. Floyd, the first time they fought, he spanked him. He won a unanimous decision, 118 to 110. And unfortunately, I kind of disagree with this. He put Dave Shade down. No, I'm sorry, he did not. Dave Shade won only 2 rounds. He won the 2nd and the 12th. When I had them fight 100 times, Shade won only 6. Mayweather won 89. 5 were draws. Of Shade's 6 wins, he was able to stop Pretty Boy Floyd 3 times. Money Mayweather 3 times. Floyd, of his 89 wins, he KO'd Shade 27 times.
See, now, first of all, it doesn't shock me that Floyd beat him because of his style, a bob and weave crouching style, and Floyd's style. Styles make fights. Floyd could have outboxed him. But one of the things that Dave Shade was known for was his durability. Of 28 losses, and then you throw in the 1 newspaper loss, so the guy's got 29 losses out of 224 fights. He was only stopped twice. And he fought bigger guys his whole career, so he must have had a good set of whiskers on him. So that's kind of strange. But go ahead. What else you got?
Okay, so against Manny Pacquiao beats him the first time they fight by unanimous decision. He does put Shade down once in the 10th round. It's a close fight, though, 114, 113, and 2 judges have it 7-5, 115, 113 each. Oh, well, no, not 7-5. I'm sorry, because of the knockdown. And then they fight 100 times. Shade's able to win 11. Manny beats him 86 times. Of those 86, he stopped them 47 times. They had 3 draws. And of Shade's 11 wins, he scored 7 KOs of Pac-Man.
And I'm going to go about the stoppages again. And of those 29 losses, One was because he broke his arm. There was only 2 stoppages. One of them was the broken arm. So the guy.
That's the thing about the 100 is when you think about it, some of them could be medical stoppages like that. Maybe some of them are broken wrist, broken arm, broken this, broken that.
Right. Yeah, because Mickey Walker broke his arm. I'm trying to, as you're doing these, I'm just trying to see where the other time he was stopped, and I'm having a hard time finding it. Okay. Way early in his career, way back in 1919, Joe Petey Coffey knocked him out in 3. So he went all the way until the Mickey Walker fight without being stopped. I mean, obviously the guy had a good chin on him, but
I can't. I mean, to me, if you're sparring with Jack Dempsey at night and riding horses the next morning, you got a hell of a chin.
And all you got is a black eye, and you're trying to convince people you walked into a door. I mean, come on, man, come on. Now you put him in with Cotto. How did Cotto do?
At middleweight, I put him up to the middleweight Cotto, and Shade beat him, which I think I would agree with that. In a way, Shade was kind of like the Cotto of his day. He fought a lot of big fights, but he always came up on the B side, even when it was close. Shade wins 116-111, 116-112, 117-109. He had Cotto down in the 4th and the 8th. I had them fight 100 times. He gets the better of him. Shade, 47 wins. Cotto, 43 losses, 10 draws. He was able to stop Cotto 15 times. Of Cotto's wins, he stopped Shade 14 times. So they match up pretty well.
Yeah. Huh. And, of course,
and Golovkin. Yeah. I thought he would do better than he did, actually, but they matched up pretty well, too. The first time I had them fight, and I only had them fight once, it was a draw. They traded knockdowns. In the 7th, Shade put Golovkin down. That was actually a hell of a fight, actually. Reading that one was pretty cool. And then in the 11th, Triple G drops Shade. The scores 114, 113 apiece, and one even card. I had them fight 100 times. Golovkin got the better of him just slightly. 41 wins for Shade, 47 losses, and 12 draws. And of his 41 wins, Shade stopped Golovkin 35 times. So every time they fought, it's a firefight. And Golovkin, of his 47 wins, he stopped Shade 19 times. So he matched up better with the middles than he did with the welters.
That's interesting. It has to be the styles, because I guess he matched up better with guys that are in front of him than versus guys who could outbox him, like Floyd and Manny.
Yeah.
So, but Dave Shade, he's our blast from the past this week. Former world title challenger, welterweight title challenger, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Came up short 2 times and had a draw, so technically came up short 3 times. He had 132 wins as a pro, with only 17 wins coming by knockout. He had 28 losses, in which he was stopped only 2 times, like we mentioned. He had 59 draws. Now, he did fight in a newspaper decision era where they have him at 24 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. He had 224 total fights, 1,915 rounds as a pro. But again, he wasn't known as a knockout puncher. 7% knockout ratio, which is one of the lowest I can recall. He lived to 81 years old, like we said, and unfortunately for Alex, he died peacefully. 5'8", 71-inch reach, and
I was taking a sip of coffee. I'm choking to death.
And he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2011. This week's Blast from the Past, Dave Shade. Great job, as usual, Alex.